know that expression, you learn something new every day? Well, here on Paige's Lessons, I'm going to share with you a variety of insights and self-reflections that will inspire and motivate you to rethink how you process and experience life. I'll be giving my best advice on topics such as relationships, career, and overall life transitions. I can't wait to share these golden nuggets with you. Let's get started. And now a quick shout out to our sponsor. And now back to the show. It's funny when you work with clients or you talk with friends or coworkers, whatever, and they bring up something that is so prominent in your life. You know, when maybe someone says a theme or a problem they're experiencing and you resonate so much, you're like, it's funny you mentioned that because blah, 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 this is what's happening to me. So when you kind of share that common experience. So that happened to me this past week because one of my clients, one of her issues was talking about relationships and talking about this lack of communication. And I couldn't help but laugh, in my head of like, wow, like, okay, universe, I hear you. Like, I see what you're trying to tell me here. Like, it's just kind of in my face of, all right, I need to address some things that are going on in my life. And, I'm not going to obviously disclose who it is, exactly what we worked on, but I do want to share in this episode this message about communication in your relationships, whether that's your intimate or your work relationships or friendships, family relationships, it doesn't matter. I just want to emphasize communication and what I've really learned this week. And the fact that a client brought up these issues in her relationship and the things she wants to work on, of course, it just made me reflect on myself. What do I want? What are my needs? What are my standards? How am I communicating or not communicating? And what do I need to do better and improve? So the main thing that I want to work on is not letting things bubble up. I have historically done this, and I don't want to say I hold a grudge, but I will admit and I will be accountable in my faults that sometimes I tally in my head, like I keep the score. And that is really, really unhealthy. And it's too much pressure, to be honest. It's too much expectations that I'm holding for myself and somebody else. And what I mean by, keeping the score is just thinking about, well, I've done blah, 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 and this other person has not done blah, 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 blah to match or something like that. So I would make these little pity, comparisons and just not even communicate in that moment how I'm feeling. And instead, I'm just like keeping this imaginary file cabinet in my head of all the things they do or not do. And that's totally unhealthy. And I want to own up to that. I want to change that behavior in myself. So I think with communication and whoever you are confronting, before you talk about your needs, before you talk about your boundaries and your feelings, one thing that could be really helpful is, on this show, I really promote journaling. That's like a huge thing for me. But I would say take out a piece of paper and write down some intentions that you want to say in this conversation. Like, how can you make it about you? How can you say, I feel blank because I experience blank, versus, well, you don't do this, and I feel this way because of you, and all of that stuff. And I know I'm guilty of it. I know I point the finger and I blame others when things I feel like aren't going right, quote unquote. So I think when you're communicating, First, start out, what do I want to say? What are the needs I'm trying to communicate and get met? And what am I expecting from the other person? How do I want the other person to respond? What could be some comebacks? Can I already kind of prepare on what they're going to say and how I want to respond to that? So take out a paper and pen and just write out your intentions. And again, make it about you. Make those I statements very prominent. And as much as you can avoid any you, like you're doing this, you're not doing that, try your hardest to get rid of that and avoid that, and just get a little creative. Get a little creative in your voice and see, how that goes for you. See what you can create from that discussion. And after, you write those intentions, practice saying them in your head. Practice saying them out loud. If you really feel uncomfortable, maybe talk to a friend. Like say you want to communicate something with your partner, ask your parent about it. Ask your friend. Ask someone else objectively of, am I double check my work here? Like, does this make sense? And they can help brainstorm you too. And that's a vulnerable thing too, right? Like I know a lot of us don't want to share our personal lives and our insecurities with other people, but if you can include someone that you know is a support system for you, get their feedback on it if that's something that is aligned with you, right? So again, communication, write those intentions out, make it about yourself, and have that conversation. Like make the time to do it. Don't tally in your head or like think of like all of these excuses for why you don't want to speak up. Because the more and more you keep quiet, the more and more anxiety and depression you're going to feel. So get out there, communicate as best as you can. And remember, it doesn't have to be perfect. You just have to get started. You just have to say it once and learn from it. Because when you communicate your needs, when you communicate those things you want to say and to better that relationship, I would hope that other person truly listens to what you have to say and not make it like a defense thing. And if the other person is really defensive and isn't hearing you out, well, that's just more of an opportunity for you to explore that and see, well, what else are we going to go from here? How else can we continue to communicate the best way possible? Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, please share it with others. Post about it on social media or head over to your favorite podcast platform to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. Subscribing and posting a review helps to improve engagement and is essential for the podcast to be discovered by new listeners. Thanks again for listening, and remember, every day provides a lesson. Take care.